February 6, 1972. Pomona, California. A small, white Chevrolet Vega sits in the staging lanes at the NHRA Winter Nationals. The driver is a short, grumpy-looking man in his early 40s named Bill Jenkins. No factory team. No Hemi engine. No sponsorship money flooding in. Just a 331 cubic inch small block engine he built himself in his Pennsylvania shop. Around him, factory-backed Chrysler Hemis with unlimited budgets, professional crews, and 2 straight years of total domination. What happened in the next 8 elimination rounds would end the big block era, rewrite the pro stock rulebook, and prove that one man's engineering genius could beat an entire corporation's checkbook. This is the story of how Grumpy Jenkins made Chevrolet win. Without Chevrolet. Welcome back to Regal Rides, where we dig deep into the stories that shaped drag racing history. Today's story is about more than just winning races. It's about how one brilliant engineer with limited resources took on factory-backed teams and won. We're talking about Bill Grumpy Jenkins, the man who revolutionized pro stock with nothing but a sharp mind, a small block Chevy, and an attitude to match. By the end of 1972, Jenkins would earn $250,000. That made him the highest-paid athlete in America, tied with NBA legend Wilt Chamberlain. More money than most NFL quarterbacks. More than baseball's biggest stars. And he did it without a single dollar of official factory support. If you're a fan of real engineering triumphs over corporate money, you're going to love this story. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because we've got 25 minutes of pure drag racing history ahead. To understand what Bill Jenkins accomplished, you need to understand where pro stock was in 1972. The class was only 2 years old. NHRA created pro stock in 1970 as the ultimate manufacturer battleground. Real cars. Real engines. Real competition. The first race was the 1970 Winter Nationals in Pomona. The rules were simple: 7 pounds per cubic inch minimum weight, stock frames only, no tube chassis. Big block engines dominated from day one. 427 cubic inch Chevys. 426 cubic inch Chrysler Hemis. And Bill Jenkins actually won that very first pro stock event. Driving a 1968 Camaro, he ran 9.98 seconds at 138 miles per hour. The first 9-second pro stock pass in history. He also won the Gator Nationals. But then Chrysler's factory-backed teams took over completely. Ronnie Sox and the Sox and Martin team had unlimited budgets. Direct factory support meant engineering help, parts, and money. Lots of money. Plymouth and Dodge Hemis won nearly everything in 1970 and 1971. Ronnie Sox won the 1970 Pro Stock World Championship. Mike Fonz won the 1971 championship driving a Dodge. Jenkins went completely winless in 1971. He couldn't compete with factory money. The playing field in late 1971 looked like this. Chrysler had full factory backing, professional crews, 426 Hemi power rated conservatively at 425 horsepower. Ford had some factory support with their single overhead cam engines. Chevrolet? Nothing. General Motors officially banned factory racing back in 1963. Independent Chevy racers like Jenkins had to buy their own parts, build their own engines, fund everything themselves. Pro stock weights hovered around 3,000 pounds for the big blocks. The Hemis made 425 horsepower or more. Jenkins' 1970 Camaro with its big block Chevy was competitive, but outgunned by factory teams. The class was becoming pro-Hemi. Mopar domination was complete. For Chevrolet it looked hopeless. But Bill Jenkins wasn't the type to just give up. While Chrysler spent millions on Hemi engines and factory engineering, Jenkins spent his nights in a small Pennsylvania shop. He was working on something radical. Something nobody had seen before. A combination so different, so unconventional, it would make the NHRA rewrite their rulebook. And it all started with one key insight about the rules. William Tyler Jenkins was born December 22, 1930, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He grew up in Malvern, just outside the city. As a kid, he worked on neighbors' tractor engines. He started drag racing in a 1955 Chevrolet convertible. And he attended Cornell University for 3 years, studying mechanical engineering. He didn't finish his degree, but he applied engineering principles to engine building in an era when most racers worked by feel and instinct. That made him different. That made him dangerous. The Grumpy nickname came from his no-nonsense attitude at the track. Jenkins was constantly focused on improving performance. No time for idle chatter. No time for socializing. Gruff, direct. All business. But underneath that stern exterior was a brilliant analytical mind. Jenkins had been an engine builder for Dave Strickler in the early 1960s. His first NHRA national event win came at the 1965 Winter Nationals, driving a Hemi Plymouth. In 1967, he won the NHRA Nationals Superstock title in a Chevrolet Camaro. He was known as the premier builder of naturally aspirated stock engines. In 1965 alone, he set 35 national records. Now here's the interesting part about Jenkins and Chevrolet. He originally raced Chrysler Hemis in 1964 and 65. But he couldn't get a Chrysler factory deal for 1966. So he switched to Chevrolet independently. He built his first Grumpy's toy, a 1966 Chevy 2 with a 327 cubic inch engine. That little Chevy beat big Hemi muscle cars through better power-to-weight ratio. Starting in 1967, he had unofficial collaboration with Chevrolet. Though they officially didn't support racing, he rewarded them with that 1967 Superstock win. Jenkins' philosophy was simple. Science over brute force. Efficiency beats displacement. Engineering trumps money. Meticulous record-keeping. Constant testing and refinement. He had 3 years of Cornell engineering education. He was an engine builder first, driver second. And here's something remarkable. He won races with a manual 4-speed transmission when everyone else used automatics. In 1972, he made 250 consecutive passes without missing a single shift. Jenkins was small in stature, around 5'6", but huge in presence. After going winless in 1971, Jenkins knew he couldn't beat the Hemis with another big block. Chrysler's factory support was simply too strong. More money meant better parts, more testing, professional crews. The big block arms race was unwinnable for an independent racer. So Jenkins did what engineers do. He studied the NHRA rulebook obsessively. The original Pro Stock rules were 7 pounds per cubic inch across the board. This favored big engines in big cars. All manufacturers fought at the same weight break. But in late 1971, Jenkins learned NHRA was considering rule changes. Because Chrysler domination was hurting the class. Fewer Chevy and Ford entries meant less fan interest. Less fan interest meant less money for NHRA. Most American drag race fans drove Chevrolets. NHRA needed Chevy to be competitive. In November 1971, Jenkins met with NHRA competition director Steve Gibbs. He lobbied for weight breaks based on engine configuration. His argument: allow lighter weight for smaller displacement engines. Make it attractive for small block entries to return to the class. Give the underdog a chance. NHRA agreed. For 1972, they introduced a new weight break system. Big blocks, 7.25 pounds per cubic inch. Small blocks, 6.75 pounds per cubic inch. This was a 450 to 500 pound advantage for small block cars. Let me show you the math. 331 cubic inches times 6.75 equals 2,234 pounds minimum. 426 cubic inches times 7.25 equals 3,088 pounds minimum. That's an 854 pound difference. Jenkins saw the opportunity immediately. His plan was simple. Build the smallest legal engine possible, 331 cubic inches. Put it in the lightest possible car, a Chevrolet Vega subcompact. Maximum power-to-weight ratio. Out-accelerate the Hemis even with less horsepower. His target engine, 331 cubic inches from a bored 327 block. Target power, 580 to 585 horsepower. Target weight, around 2,250 pounds race ready. The Hemi competitors? 426 cubic inches, 600 plus horsepower, but 3,000 pounds or more. Jenkins' car would be 700 to 800 pounds lighter. In drag racing, that's everything. So Jenkins had the rules figured out. He had the formula. Lightweight car, small block power, maximum efficiency. But nobody had ever tried to build a pro stock car this way. No tube chassis. No blueprints. No factory engineers to call. Just Jenkins, a few trusted mechanics, and 2 months to build a car that would change everything. What they created in those 60 days was so radical, so far ahead of its time, that it's still the template for every pro stock car 50 years later. Here's how they did it. The Chevrolet Vega was brand new for 1971. A subcompact economy car. Wheelbase, 97 inches. That's 13 inches shorter than a Camaro. Curb weight, the lightest American car you could buy. It came stock with an aluminum 4-cylinder engine. Jenkins threw that away immediately. The Vega was tiny, aerodynamic, and perfect for the new weight brake advantage. Now, Howard Neal actually built the first Vega Pro Stocker, but Jenkins made it famous. Pro Stock rules at the time required stock frames. All 1970 and 1971 Pro Stockers used factory frame rails. Heavy. Not optimized for racing. But Jenkins looked at the rules more carefully. They said, stock-bodied. Not necessarily stock frame. So he made a radical decision, build a complete tube chassis. Jenkins and his crew, Joe Trison, Dick Whitman, and Tom Kerr, spent November and December 1971 building. Total build time, 1,400 man-hours in 2 months. They threw away the Vega's factory unitized body structure. Built a complete 4,130 chromoly steel tube chassis from scratch. Hand-fabricated. All welded construction. Much lighter than a stock frame. Infinitely stiffer. And it could be tuned for perfect weight distribution. The material was 4,130 chromoly steel tubing. An integrated roll cage protected the driver. Front suspension mounting points were designed from scratch for maximum traction. Rear suspension used a 4-link setup. Weight savings compared to stock frame, estimated 200 to 300 pounds. Was this legal? Gray area. The rule said stock-bodied, but a tube chassis was technically legal as long as the exterior looked stock. Jenkins presented it to NHRA. They approved it. And once they approved it, everything changed. Every competitive pro stocker would need one. The body itself used Vega body panels mounted to the tube chassis. Stock roof, doors, and glass per the rules. Fiberglass front clip was legal. Wheel wells were opened up for tire clearance. Aluminum used wherever possible. But from the outside, it still looked like a Vega. A grocery getter with a secret. Now let's talk about the heart of this machine, the 331 cubic inch small block Chevrolet. Jenkins started with a Chevrolet 354-bolt main block. Strong foundation for high horsepower. He destroked it to a 327 crankshaft using bearing spacers. Bored at .030 inch over. Final displacement, 331 cubic inches. Exactly what he needed. The block preparation was meticulous. 4-bolt main caps for strength under high RPM. A line honed to perfection. All internal passages deburred and smoothed for better oil flow. Deck height optimized. The rotating assembly used a 327 small journal crankshaft. Shorter stroke meant higher RPM capability. Forged pistons with gas ports, a Jenkins innovation for better ring seal. Connecting rods measured 5.85 inches long. That's longer than the stock 5.70 inch rods. This improved the rod-to-stroke ratio. Less piston side loading. Smoother high RPM operation. Target RPM, 8,500 to 9,000 revolutions per minute. Revolutionary for that era. The cylinder heads were heavily ported and polished. Valve work done entirely by hand. Intake and exhaust runners optimized for flow. Combustion chamber work to improve efficiency. Compression ratio, approximately 14:1. The valve train used a solid lifter camshaft. High duration with tight lobe separation. Aluminum roller rockers. Dual valve springs for high RPM stability. High lift capability. The induction system featured an Edelbrock tunnel ram intake manifold. Dual Holley 4-barrel carburetors. Runners matched and ported by hand for perfect air distribution. The oiling system used a kick-out oil pan, another Jenkins invention. High-volume oil pump. External oil lines. Consistent oil pressure even at 9,000 revolutions per minute. Ignition was a magneto system. Multiple spark curves tested on the dyno. Optimized timing advance for maximum power. Power output, 580 to 585 horsepower at 8,500 revolutions per minute. Peak power around 8,500 revolutions per minute. Power-to-weight ratio, approximately 0.26 horsepower per pound. Compare that to the Hemi, 600 horsepower but only 0.20 horsepower per pound. That difference is everything in drag racing. The development process involved countless hours on the dyno. Testing different combinations. Meticulous record-keeping of every change. The scientific method applied to every single decision. When Jenkins loaded that engine into the Vega, it weighed around 2,250 pounds ready to race. 331 cubic inches. 585 horsepower. 9,000 revolutions per minute redline. The most efficient pro stock engine ever built at that time. February 1972. Jenkins arrives at the Pomona Fairplex. His plain white Vega looks tiny next to the Hemi muscle cars in the pits. The competition, Ronnie Sox, the defending champion, Don Grathier, Dick Landy, all driving Hemis. All with factory backing. 32-car field. Everyone's watching the strange little Vega. First test pass. Disaster. The chassis setup was all wrong. The car wouldn't hook up, tires just spinning. Front end lifting. Handling issues all over the place. Jenkins ran 9.90 seconds at about 137 miles per hour. Not competitive at all. That 9.90 qualified him 17th out of 32 cars. Ronnie Sox sat on the pole with a time in the low 9.6s. Jenkins barely made the field. Competitors dismissed the Vega completely. Grumpy brought a grocery getter to a pro stock race. Saturday night after qualifying, Jenkins and his crew worked through the night. Suspension changes. Weight distribution adjustments. Tire pressure experiments. Shock settings refined. Springs adjusted. Joe Trison, the chief mechanic, handled most of the heavy work. Dick Whitman, the chassis specialist, focused on suspension geometry. Tom Kerr, the engine tuner, made carburetor adjustments. Jenkins drove and engineered simultaneously. By Sunday morning, the car was transformed. Test hits showed dramatic improvement. Low 9.6 second passes in testing. Suddenly, the Vega was competitive with the Hemis. Jenkins had that small smile. The one that meant he knew something nobody else did. Sunday morning. Round 1. Bill Jenkins versus Stu McDade, driving a Hemi Duster for Billy, the Kid, Steps team. McDade is confident. He's got a Hemi. Jenkins has a 331. The Christmas tree counts down. Green light. The Vega explodes off the starting line. Instant 60-foot time advantage. The lighter car just launches harder. Jenkins carries that speed through the entire quarter mile. He runs 9.69 at 139 miles per hour. Defeats McDade convincingly. First victory for the Vega concept. Round 2, Jenkins runs 9.67. Round 3, 9.64. Each pass getting quicker as the team dials in the setup. Defeating Hemi after Hemi after Hemi. Competitors start paying serious attention. How is that little car that quick? The pattern becomes clear. The Vega's advantage is in the launch and early acceleration. That 700 to 800 pound weight advantage means better 60-foot times. The Hemis have more horsepower, but they can't catch the Vega. By 330 feet down the track, the race is already over. The semifinal, Jenkins is now running consistent mid-9.6s. Defeating more Mopar teams. The crowd is getting behind the underdog. Chevy fans are finding hope. The final, Jenkins versus Don Grathier. Grathier is an experienced Hemi driver. He's been running strong all day. But Jenkins has all the momentum. Final round, Jenkins launches perfectly. Runs 9.64 at 139 plus miles per hour. Wins the 1972 Winter Nationals. The first national event for the tube chassis, small block Vega. Proof of concept, complete. The drag racing world is shocked. The Grump did it. Chevy fans are celebrating. Chrysler teams are confused. How did that little thing beat our Hemis? Jenkins had just pulled off the upset of the decade. One win at the season opener. But one win doesn't make a revolution. The question was, could he do it again? Was this a fluke? Or had he really cracked the code? Chrysler's factory teams weren't about to roll over. They had millions of dollars on the line. Engineering resources. And pride. They wanted their dominance back. What happened over the next 8 months would answer that question once and for all. Jenkins returns to Pennsylvania with proof his concept works. But he doesn't celebrate. He goes right back to work. Continuing to refine the Vega. Engine development ongoing. Chassis improvements. Testing, testing, testing. The 1972 season becomes the Bill Jenkins show. He wins 6 of the remaining 8 NHRA national events. Gator Nationals, win. Spring Nationals, win. Summer Nationals, win. The prestigious U.S. Nationals, win. World Finals, win. Only a couple of events where mechanical issues cost him victories. Watch the performance evolution. Early season, 9.6 second passes. Mid-season, breaking into the 9.5s. Late season, consistent 9.4 second runs. Each race, Jenkins gets faster, while everyone else struggles to catch up. The competition's response? Scrambling. Chrysler teams try everything to catch up to the little Vega. Sox and Martin throw money at the problem. Other racers begin abandoning their big blocks entirely. The move to small blocks begins across the entire class. Copycat Vegas start appearing in pits. Tube chassis construction becomes mandatory just to compete. Jenkins doesn't just race the nationals. Between events, he runs the match racing circuit, earning appearance fees, building his brand. Grumpy's Toy 11 becomes famous nationwide. Fans love the underdog-turned-champion story. And the money? 1972 total earnings, $250,000. That's national event winnings, match race fees, and contingency sponsorships from tire companies and parts manufacturers. But still, and this is important, no direct Chevrolet factory support. This makes Jenkins the highest-paid athlete in America, tied with NBA legend Wilt Chamberlain. He's earning more than most NFL quarterbacks. More than baseball's biggest stars. A drag racer as a mainstream sports star. The media attention is unprecedented. Time magazine runs a feature on Jenkins, the first drag racer ever on time. National television coverage. Hot Rod magazine covers month after month. National Dragster features him weekly. Bill Jenkins becomes a household name among racing fans nationwide. And at the end of 1972, Jenkins wins the NHRA Pro Stock World Championship. First title for the Vega. First title for a tube chassis car. Complete vindication of the small block concept. The statistics for 1972 tell the story. 6 wins in 8 NHRA national events. Championship, 1972 NHRA Pro Stock World Champion. Best elapsed time, low 9.4s. Total earnings, $250,000. And here's something remarkable, 250 consecutive passes without missing a single shift. Still using that 4-speed manual transmission when everyone else had switched to automatics. By the end of 1972, Jenkins had done more than win a championship. He changed pro stock forever. The immediate industry impact was total. First, the tube chassis revolution. By the end of 1972, every competitive team is building tube chassis. Stock frames are obsolete overnight. A new industry emerges, chassis builders specializing in pro stock tube frames. Companies that didn't even exist in 1971 are now essential. The cost of competition increases dramatically, but performance increases even more. Second, the small block movement. The big block era ends completely in pro stock. Everyone switching to small block engines to get that weight advantage. 331 cubic inches, 340, 350, these become the standard displacements. The displacement race becomes an efficiency race. Jenkins proved it. Smart engineering beats raw displacement. Third, an explosion of innovation. Jenkins' other inventions get adopted industry-wide. In 1974, he introduces the McPherson strut front suspension to his Vega. Co-developed with Roger Lamb, it becomes the standard pro stock front suspension design. Better geometry for straight-line acceleration. Adjustable for different track conditions. Dry sump oiling systems arrive in 1974 as well. Solves oil starvation issues under hard acceleration. Consistent oil pressure regardless of G-forces. Jenkins was first to apply road racing technology to drag racing. Kick-out oil pans prevent oil starvation in weight transfer. Adjustable suspension becomes the norm. The scientific approach to setup replaces gut feeling. Jenkins' 1974 Vega, Grumpy's Toy 11, is even more advanced. First pro stock with dry sump oiling. First with McPherson's strut front suspension. Weight distribution optimized even further. That car wins 13 pro stock events in 1974. The most successful single car in pro stock history up to that point. The Lenco transmission era begins in late 1972. NHRA approves the Lenco planetary transmission. Jenkins initially stays with his beloved 4-speed manual, but eventually adapts the Lenco in 1973. Makes shifting easier and more consistent. Another technological leap forward. NHRA tries to maintain parity with constant rule adjustments. 1973, NHRA keeps adjusting weight breaks. Multiple weight formulas for different combinations. It becomes incredibly complex. Small car with small engine, 6.90 pounds per cubic inch. Big car with big engine, 7.25 pounds per cubic inch. Various combinations in between. By 1975, it's chaos. Weight breaks for every possible combination. Different formulas for Chevy, Ford, and Mopar. Constant arguments and protests. Pencil whipping, win on Sunday, get penalized on Monday. NHRA tech inspectors face a nightmare. This complexity eventually leads to the switch to a 500 cubic inch displacement limit in 1982. Simplified rules. Level playing field. All sparked by Jenkins' small block success. New competitors emerge inspired by Jenkins' approach. Bob Glidden becomes Jenkins' main rival. Lee Shepard brings his own creativity. Warren Johnson arrives with engineering brilliance that rivals Jenkins himself. A new generation inspired by Jenkins' scientific approach. Pro Stock becomes an engineering showcase rather than just a horsepower race. But Jenkins also creates an unintended consequence. He proves subcompacts with V8 engines work perfectly, but Vegas and Pintos were never sold as muscle cars. This creates a disconnect from stock in Pro Stock. It's the beginning of the silhouette racing era. Cars look stock on the outside but are pure race machines underneath. This debate continues today. After dominating as a driver for 5 years, Jenkins makes a decision in 1975. He wants to focus full-time on engineering and development. Driving takes time away from research and development. So he hires drivers to pilot his cars. 1976, Larry Lombardo replaces Jenkins as driver. Lombardo joins the team at the second race of the season. They're already behind in points from missing that first race. But Lombardo is fast and consistent, driving Jenkins' engineering masterpieces. And he wins the 1976 NHRA Winston Pro Stock World Championship. Proves that Jenkins' engineering can make any good driver a champion. Lombardo continues through 1979. 1977, third in points. 1978, second in points. 1979, seventh in points. Ken Dondero also drives for Jenkins. Wins the 1976 AHRA Pro Stock Championship. Multiple victories in AHRA competition. Jenkins as team owner and engineer focuses on what he does best. Full-time engine development. Dyno testing. Researching new technologies. Building customer engines. Consultation work with other teams. The legacy continues beyond his own cars. Joe Lepone wins the 1985 Winter Nationals with a Jenkins engine. Jenkins engines win numerous races through the 1980s. His reputation as premier engine builder becomes solidified. Customer list includes top competitors across multiple classes. Jenkins reduces pro stock involvement in the early 1980s. His final season as team owner, 1983. But he continues building engines afterward. Focuses on comp eliminator and sportsman racing. He even develops GM's splay valve cylinder heads for the 1998 Pro Stock truck class. Other ventures include NASCAR engine work. Built an engine for Donnie Allison, 1975 Daytona 500 pole position. Mike Swaim used a Jenkins engine, 1987 Busch Series Daytona pole. Consultation for various racing programs nationwide. The Grumpy legacy by the numbers. 13 NHRA national event wins as a driver from 1965 to 1975. Multiple championships as team owner. Most wins achieved with a 4-speed manual transmission. The scientific method permanently applied to drag racing. Engineering over brute force becomes the new philosophy. He changed how racers approach problem solving forever. By 1983, Jenkins had stepped away from pro stock as a team owner. But his influence was just beginning. Every single pro stock car running today, from the Camaros at Pomona to the Mountain Motors at PDRA events, they all trace their DNA back to that 1972 Vega. The tube chassis. The small block efficiency philosophy. The scientific approach to development. It's all Jenkins. So what happened to the man himself? And where is that revolutionary Vega today? Let's talk about the legacy. Jenkins stepped back from hands-on team operations in the mid-1980s. But he never really left drag racing. He continued engine building and consultation work. Remained active in the drag racing community. A regular attendee at NHRA events. Still wearing his signature red fisherman's hat. Still grumpy. Still brilliant. He mentored the next generation of engine builders. Passed along knowledge that couldn't be found in any book. Jenkins' personal life included 2 marriages. First to Alexandra Newman, they had a daughter, Susan Jenkins. Later divorced. Then married Polly Wood. They had a son William and daughter Danielle. He lived in Powley, Pennsylvania, his entire life. Operated Jenkins' competition shop in Malvern. His contributions continued through his later years. Comp eliminator engine development. Customer engines for sportsman racers nationwide. Consultation for professional teams. Technical advice sought by drivers and teams across all classes. He wrote an influential book, The Chevrolet Racing Engine, with Larry Schrabe. That book became the Bible for Chevy engine builders. Still in demand decades later, the racing world honored him repeatedly. Don Garlett's International Drag Racing Hall of Fame, 1993. Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, 1996. International Motorsports Hall of Fame, 2008. NHRA Top 50 Drivers of All Time, number 8 in their 2001 ranking. Awards and recognition poured in. 21 times named to CarCraft All-Star Drag Racing Team. CarCraft Man of the Year. The Ali Award from CarCraft. American Auto Racing Writers and Broadcasters All-America Team in 1972. Chevrolet Salutes Performance Award in 1984. March 29, 2012. Bill Jenkins passed away from heart failure. He was 81 years old. At his home in Powley, Pennsylvania. The reaction from the drag racing community was profound. A genuine sense of loss. NHRA dedicated coverage at the following races. Tributes came from every major drag racing figure. Don Prudhomme, Don Garlitz, Bob Glidden, all paid their respects. National Dragster published an extensive tribute. The NHRA website memorial lasted for weeks. The drag racing world mourned one of its true giants. He was recognized as being on the same level as Garlitz, Prudhomme, and Muldowney, the all-time legends of the sport. Every pro stock car running today uses Bill Jenkins' innovations. Let me show you how deep his influence runs. Number 1. Tube chassis construction from 1972. 100% of pro stock cars use tube chassis. Jenkins proved the concept could work. Now it's mandatory for both safety and performance. Modern versions are more sophisticated, but it's the same basic principle. Chrome moly steel construction. Integrated roll cage. Optimized weight distribution. Jenkins' 1972 Vega started it all. Number 2. McPherson strut front suspension from 1974. Jenkins and Roger Lamb co-developed it for the 1974 Vega. Became the standard pro stock front suspension. Better geometry for straight-line acceleration. Adjustable for different track conditions. Every pro stock car today uses strut-style suspension. Direct descendant of Jenkins' innovation. Number 3. Dry sump oiling systems from 1974. Jenkins introduced it to pro stock. Solves oil starvation issues under hard acceleration. Consistent oil pressure regardless of G-forces. Now required equipment in pro stock. Technology borrowed from road racing. Jenkins was first to apply it to drag racing. Number 4. The scientific approach to racing. Jenkins brought engineering discipline to drag racing. Meticulous testing and documentation. Dyno development as standard practice. Computer simulations today evolved from Jenkins' methodical approach. Changed racing from feel to data. Number 5. The small block efficiency philosophy. Jenkins proved efficiency beats raw displacement. Led to the 500 cubic inch limit adopted in 1982. Today's pro stock, 500 cubic inches making over 1,500 horsepower. That's more than 2.5 horsepower per cubic inch, naturally aspirated. The most efficient race engines in motorsports. All trace back to Jenkins' 331 cubic inch revolution. Other lasting innovations still in use today. Kick-out oil pans prevent oil starvation in hard cornering. Gas-ported pistons for better ring seal. Slick shift transmissions for easier manual shifting. Cool cans for liquid cooling of the intake charge. Electric water pump fans for on-demand cooling. All Jenkins innovations. All still in use 50 years later. The rules evolution he triggered changed pro stock forever. 1972, weight brake system based on displacement. 1975, multiple weight formulas creating chaos. 1982, NHRA abandons pounds per cubic inch entirely. 1982, adopts 500 cubic inch displacement limit. Simplified rules. Level playing field. All sparked by Jenkins' small block success. Modern pro stock cars run low 6.4 seconds at 213 plus miles per hour. That's more than 3 seconds quicker than Jenkins' 1972 Vega. But the same basic formula remains. Lightweight tube chassis. Efficient engine within displacement limit. Power-to-weight optimization. Scientific development approach. Bill Jenkins would recognize the philosophy immediately. Bill Jenkins, deceased March 29, 2012, at age 81. Buried in Pennsylvania. But his legacy is alive in every pro stock pass made today. Remembered as one of the sport's greatest engineers. The Grumpy nickname has become a term of endearment. Now what about that 1972 Vega? Grumpy's Toy 10. The car survived. It remained within 10 miles of Jenkins' shop for decades. Collector Mark Pappas acquired the car around 2009. A complete restoration was undertaken at Windy City Rods and Restorations. Jenkins consulted on the restoration before his passing. He authenticated every single detail. Original paint codes. Chassis color specifications. Engine painting technique. Even the starting procedure. Jenkins provided the original 331 cubic inch engine from his shop. Nearly complete original drivetrain. The restoration was completed in 2013. The car is now part of Mark Pappas' collection. Displayed at various nostalgia drag racing events. PRI show appearances. Occasionally at NHRA museum events. The engine fires up and runs for demonstrations. A living piece of history. Mark Pappas also owns other Jenkins cars. The 1968 Grumpy's Toy 4 Camaro, fully restored. A recreation of the Lee Shepherd Camaro that Jenkins built. Several other Jenkins cars reside in private collections. Some are in museums. A few have been lost to time. Larry Lombardo continued his racing career after Jenkins. Remained a respected driver in the pro stock community. His later years are less documented, but he's remembered fondly for that 1976 championship. Joe Trison, Dick Whitman, and Tom Kerr, Jenkins' core crew members. They contributed to countless innovations. Later careers in the racing industry. Helped train the next generation of mechanics and fabricators. Jenkins' competition shop at the original Malvern, Pennsylvania location eventually closed after Jenkins' passing. The legacy lives on through his engines still running across the country. Parts and tools were dispersed to collectors and museums. The Chevrolet connection came full circle. Chevrolet eventually returned to full factory pro stock support in the 1980s and 90s. They acknowledged Jenkins' role in keeping Chevy competitive during the dark years. Modern Chevrolet Performance Division continues Jenkins' philosophy, engineering excellence. As one Chevy executive said, without Jenkins, there might not be Chevy in pro stock today. Jenkins' influence extended far beyond pro stock. In NASCAR, he built engines for several teams. 1975, Donnie Allison won the pole position for the Daytona 500 with a Jenkins engine. 1987, Mike Swaim used a Jenkins engine to win the pole for a Busch Series race at Daytona. His Chevrolet small block development aided NASCAR efforts across the board. Engineering principles applied to stock car racing. In sportsman racing, countless local racers used Jenkins-built engines. Comp Eliminator saw Jenkins engines dominate for decades. Super stock competitors applied Jenkins principles. His book taught thousands of weekend racers how to build Chevy engines properly. For street performance enthusiasts, Jenkins proved the small block Chevy's potential. He influenced hot rodders worldwide. The aftermarket industry exploded with small block parts. Performance Chevrolets became the icon of American hot rodding. The independent racer, legacy matters most. Jenkins proved you didn't need factory backing to win. He inspired independent teams across all forms of motorsports. Brain power can beat corporate budgets. Engineering genius is the great equalizer. In drag racing culture, Jenkins made the sport mainstream. That Time magazine feature brought national attention. Professional athlete-level earning power legitimized drag racing. It became a serious sport, not just an outlaw activity. It helped shed the hot rodder image. The engineering approach changed how racers think about problems. Data-driven decision-making became standard. Testing methodology spread across all classes. Scientific rigor applied to racing is now expected. This mentality is standard across all motorsports today. The underdog story resonates across generations. The small guy beating big corporations. Intelligence triumphing over money. Hard work and innovation being rewarded. The American dream in racing form. So here's the question that divides drag racing fans to this day. Was Bill Jenkins' 1972 Vega the most important pro stock car ever built? Did one man with a small block Chevy and a brilliant mind change the sport more than anyone before or since? Think about it. Without Jenkins, there's no tube chassis, no dry sump systems, no scientific approach to development, maybe no Chevrolet in pro stock at all. One car, one man, One revolutionary idea. Sometimes the grumpiest genius is exactly what racing needs. 3 takeaways from the Bill Jenkins story. First, engineering genius beats corporate money. Bill Jenkins proved that intelligence and innovation matter more than budgets. With no factory support, he defeated fully funded factory teams. His 331 cubic inch small block beat 426 cubic inch Hemis backed by Chrysler's millions. The 1972 season wasn't just about wins. It was validation of the independent racer. The message is clear: the underdog can win with smarter thinking. Second, one idea can change everything. The tube chassis concept revolutionized pro stock forever. Every competitive car since 1972 uses Jenkins' basic design. Innovation isn't always about being first. It's about being right. Jenkins saw what the rules allowed and exploited it brilliantly. He changed pro stock from stock cars to silhouette racers. For better or worse, pro stock today exists because of Jenkins' 1972 Vega. Third, legacy outlasts lifetime. Jenkins passed away in 2012, but his influence grows stronger every year. Every pro stock run at Pomona, Gainesville, Indianapolis carries his DNA. The scientific approach to racing is now standard everywhere. Engineers in NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar use principles Jenkins pioneered. He didn't just win races. He changed how people think about racing. True genius has impact long after you're gone. Why does this story still matter? In an era of massive factory budgets and corporate teams, Jenkins reminds us that innovation still wins. Small teams with smart people can still compete. Drag racing rewards intelligence as much as money. The sport remains accessible to brilliant minds. Jenkins proved you don't need factory backing to make history. The grumpy philosophy: work harder than everyone else. Think smarter than everyone else. Test everything, assume nothing. Let results speak louder than words. Stay focused when others celebrate. Engineering excellence above all else. Today's independent pro stock teams fight similar battles. Mega budgets versus smart engineering. Jenkins' story inspires current underdogs. Proof that revolution is still possible. Final thought. Maybe being grumpy isn't bad. Maybe it's just focus. Maybe refusing to socialize at the track means dedication. Maybe that stern face meant he was 3 steps ahead of everyone. Bill Jenkins wasn't grumpy. He was determined. And that determination changed drag racing forever. So here's my question for you. Was Bill Jenkins the most important person in pro stock history? Did his 1972 Vega matter more than Bob Glidden's Ford domination in the 80s? More than Warren Johnson's engineering brilliance? Is Jenkins the GOAT of pro stock? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've got a Jenkins story, maybe you met him at the track, maybe you ran one of his engines, share that too. I want to hear from the grumpy Jenkins fans out there. If you enjoyed this deep dive into drag racing history, make sure you're subscribed to Regal Rides. We've got more stories like this coming. Legends you might have forgotten. Controversies that shaped the sport. And the real history behind drag racing's biggest moments. Hit that subscribe button right now. And click the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. If you learned something new today about Bill Jenkins and that revolutionary 1972 Vega, give this video a thumbs up. It helps us keep making these deep historical dives. Your support means everything. Next time on Regal Rides, we're covering another drag racing revolutionary. Bob Glidden and the Ford Fairmont that NHRA tried to ban because it was too fast. Another independent racer who took on the establishment and won. You won't want to miss it. See you next time on Regal Rides, where we keep the history of drag racing alive.